Okay, so we want to look at different ways of classifying blasphemy here. And these are just some ways here of classifying blasphemy. So, according to one way, you can say there's two types of kufr. According to another way, you can say there's three types of kufr. Let's see the one that says there's two types of kufr. According to one method, there's two types of kufr: shirk and non-shirk. Shirk means associating partners with Allah. The word shirk means ishraq. Ishraq. You say in Arabic, ashraka, yushriku, ishraka. Ashraka, he made a partner. Yushriku, he makes a partner. Ishraka, partner making, which is also shirk. So it means giving God a partner, giving God an associate. That means giving God a counterpart or the likes of that. So shirk is wide. A lot of times I just say paganism, but it's not only idol worship. It includes all these things I'm going to mention for you now and more. So, like idol worship, that's your common case of shirk. People who worship the idols. The idols are some figures of some sort made of wood or stone or metal, and people worship them. And the thing's not going to be an idol just because it's a statue. Mere statues are not idols. The statue is going to be an idol when it's worshipped. And the people, they put funny faces on there to give them googly eyes, and they give them big teeth and all kinds of stuff. Or fire worship. Do you know who are the fire worshippers? Uh, okay, so the Majus, those are the fire worshippers, the Persian. That's the ancient Persian religion. Not just they believed in fire worship, they also believed in two gods, we're going to mention in a moment. Or believing that God is a body, that's called Tajsim, bodifying God. Or believing that he dwells in bodies, that's called hulul, hulul. Some people in our modern times, they call that being a god body. And this is a kind of atheism too. It's a very severe blasphemy because it's a kind of atheism. The one who believes like this, who believes that he's a god body, then he would believe that nothing is obligatory on him, nothing is haram for him, no one is over him, he can do whatever he wants to do, like an atheist. Or believing that God is one with the entire world, that's called pantheism, meaning he's merged with the world as one thing. Uh, if someone said nothing exists except Allah, that's pantheism. That's a statement of pantheism. To say nothing exists except Allah, because what it really means that Allah and the world are one and the same. That's blasphemy. But maybe somebody would say that statement, he doesn't know what it means. Maybe he thinks it means Allah has power over everything. So then you say to him, it doesn't mean Allah has power over everything. SubhanAllah. And you say to him, don't say that also. It doesn't mean that, and don't say that statement anymore. And don't deem him as a kafir since he didn't know what it meant. But really, it's explicit kufr. That's a clear kufr. To say nothing exists but Allah. But sometimes person doesn't understand what he's saying. Or the belief in the Trinity. That's shirk. And I think I mentioned for you. Or maybe it was somebody else. So what do they believe concerning Trinity? They say God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. So that's three. They say these three are all one. If we say to them, you believe in more than one God, he'll say, no, 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 I believe in one God only. And then if you say to him, but you said there's the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost, he'll say, yeah, they're all the same thing. So you say to him, how could the Father be the Son? That would mean he's his own Father and his own Son at the same time. They're going to say, well, God can do anything. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ تَعَالَى. Say to them, don't believe things that are ridiculous. Don't believe things that are ridiculous and then attribute that to God. You're going to sit here and say God is his own Father and his own Son and then tell me God can do anything? You're the one being silly here, being irrational here. Don't attribute that to God. And furthermore, not only is saying God is his own Father and his own Son, but you believe that all the humans are the children of God. And therefore, Mary was God's daughter, according to you. So you believe that God had a baby with his own daughter. I don't know what he's going to say to that. So you tell him. So now, besides this horrendous blasphemy here of believing that God had a baby with his own daughter, you also believe, besides that God is his own father and his own son, you believe he's also his own grandfather and his own grandson. Because if he had a baby with his own daughter, that means that the baby that came from his daughter is his grandson. Subhanallah. So this is serious blasphemy here. So what do they say? They say, oh, we just believe in it. We don't ask these questions, like similar to Wahhabis. Or the claim that the human creates his own deeds. That's shirk, because it is giving the human the attribute of the creator. So that's giving the creator a counterpart and an associate. Somebody might say, no, it's not the same because Allah creates without effort. We create, but not without effort. We create with effort. So it's different. We say to him, you're still saying, though, that you create. And create means to bring something into existence from non-existence. This is what you believe about yourself, that you are a creator, literally and truly. So whether you believe you do it with effort or without effort, you still believe you're a creator who can bring the non-existent into being from nothing. This is blasphemy and shirk. He might say, well, I didn't say I can create a body. We will say, you still say you can create something, though. It's still kufr. You can't get out of the kufr here. You need to just don't believe you can create anything. Then you're going to escape the kufr. Otherwise, you're stuck. Or the belief that there are two gods. One who is light and creates good, and one who is dark and creates evil. That's also the religion of the Majus, the old Persians. So all of that is shirk. And shirk is mostly the blasphemy that the Prophet had to deal with. He didn't have to deal with other kinds of blasphemy like this. Like the Prophet and his Sahaba, they weren't encountering atheists and philosophers. Little bit. Yani, like Ali, he refuted the atheist. Little bit. But mostly was shirk that they were fighting. Examples of the second kind of blasphemy, which is non-shirk, is like insulting the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's sacrilege. It's the blasphemy of sacrilege. Or belittling the religion. That's also the blasphemy of sacrilege. Istighfaf. Or contradicting what is commonly known to be of the religion. That's the blasphemy of contradicting. So There's still more kinds of blasphemy. Just unraveling more kinds for you here. There's a type of kufr, a category. It's called istighfaf. So that's blasphemy. That's a kind. I'm translating it as sacrilege. And there's kind of blasphemy. It's going to come now. It's called takdhib, contradicting the religion. And there's other kinds of blasphemy like inad, kufr al-inad, the kufr of obstinacy, when the person's stubborn. So he's just going to blaspheme. Hold on. When the person is stubborn, he doesn't care, and he's just going to blaspheme, and he's going to say, I don't care one way or the other. Then that's blasphemy. Uh, so contradicting what is commonly known to be of the religion, commonly known to be of the religion means ma'lumun min ad-dini bil-darura. Contradicting what is commonly known to be of the religion. Common religious knowledge. Whether we're talking about an obligation, something that's obligatory, or something that's haram, or something that's permissible, whatever is the rule. If it's known in the religion by necessity, if it is known in the religion by necessity, if it is common religious knowledge, then that's blasphemy of takdhib, contradicting the religion. So that's looking at blasphemy from the perspective of two divisions only: shirk and non-shirk. But it's possible to classify blasphemy into three categories. And when you classify blasphemy into three categories, you can do that in more than one way. The way we usually learn is to say there's three types of blasphemy: the blasphemous beliefs, the blasphemous actions, and the blasphemous sayings. Three types, but there's another way to classify blasphemy into three types. And those are tashbih, comparing God, God comparing, the blasphemy of God comparing; takdhib, contradicting the religion or belying. Yeah, he's saying opposite, so contradicting; and ta'til, atheism. So the first one, God comparing, is to believe that Allah has a body. That's an example. An example is to believe that Allah has a body, tajsim. So believing that Allah has a body, that's called tajsim. So tajsim is tashbih. Tashbih is God comparing. Tajsim is bodifying God. And all of that is what? Shirk. So tashbih is shirk. Tajsim is shirk. That's why Wahhabis are mushrikun in reality. They mushrikun have the appearance of Muslims. Long beard, prostration mark on his forehead, his pants are above his ankles, and he's a mushrik. Or believing that Allah is in a place. That's tashbih. Or believing that he has organs or emotions. We know about all these cases here. Or believing that he changes, or that he's subject to change. Wahhabis believe that Allah changes, even if they say, "No, I never said Allah changes." You say to him, do you know that Allah existed before he created places? Then depending on the kind of Wahhabi you're dealing with, he'll shut his mouth right there. He's just going to stop talking to you altogether. If he says, I don't believe God changes, I didn't say Allah changes, you say to him, don't you know that before Allah created places, he existed? Depending on the kind of Wahhabi he is, right there from that question, he's going to shut his mouth. He's not going to talk to you anymore. Because he already sees where the conversation is going. Or Another kind of Wahhabi, the dumber kind, he would say, well, that was then. This is now. So what does that mean? It means he believes that Allah changes, even if he denied it. Or there's a kind of Wahhabi, the same kind, the dumber ones. He would say, Allah was always over the creation. Don't you know creation didn't exist before? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. He's gonna say, yeah, I know creation didn't exist before. He sounds like, how are you gonna say he was over the creation when there was no creation? He's gonna say because. And then he's gonna try to explain why. As soon as he says because, then you're gonna want to smack your own face. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. The second one, which is contradicting the religion, is like denying the obligation of the prayers. Yani, and he knows that the Muslims believe in this obligation and yet denies it. That's the blasphemy. Or denying the prohibition of wine. He knows the Muslims believe in this prohibition, yet he denies it. So that's blasphemy. Now, right here, this paragraph we are reading says the second is like denying the obligation of the prayers or the prohibition of wine. Yes. Now, if you look in the previous paragraph, we said an example of non-shirk is contradicting what is commonly known to be of the religion. That's the same thing here. Those two same cases. Contradicting what is commonly known to be of the religion. That's a non-shirk blasphemy. But in this paragraph, we didn't give any example of this kind of blasphemy. We were using this as an example of a non-shirk blasphemy without then branching into examples. Now, in this second paragraph, we're dealing with the same blasphemy, the blasphemy of contradicting the religion, and now we're going to give some examples. So the second is like denying the obligation of the prayers or the prohibition of wine. Yeah. And other cases like you learned in the summary of obligatory knowledge. Like if someone denies the legitimacy of marriage or selling, that's blasphemy. If someone believes that divorce is absolutely forbidden in all circumstances, that's blasphemy. If someone believes that you can lawfully have sexual intercourse with a menstruating woman, that's blasphemy. Contradicting what is known in the religion, commonly known in the religion. But if someone believes that you could shake a woman's hand without a barrier, without desire, without a sin, yani saying, yeah, well, I don't have a desire, it's innocent, so that's why it's not haram. So he's saying that it's not haram. Not kufr here, in this case, because not known in the religion by necessity. Many Muslims do not know the prohibition of shaking the hand of a marriageable woman without a barrier, without desire. That's the second one, contradicting the religion. The third one is like denying that Allah exists. Now that's a blatant, outright atheism. But there's two kinds of atheism. There's an open atheism. That means clear, blatant, explicit atheism, which is when a person says, I don't believe that God exists, or something that means that. Then he's an atheist. He's a mu'attil, a dismantler of monotheism, meaning he's an atheist. But there's another kind of atheist, the kind that is sneaky, one thinks he's clever, and really he's a jerk. This one, this bloke, he says that Allah doesn't have attributes. That's the first time I used the word bloke. He says that Allah Ta'ala does not have attributes. That's atheism. But then he's going to say, no, I didn't say he doesn't exist. You're going to say to him, but you implied it. You implied it clearly, because by denying that he has attributes, you are denying his existence. If he doesn't have attributes, he doesn't exist. He's going to say, what? I'm not saying he doesn't have any attributes. He is a knower. He's a hearer and a seer and a speaker. And he's alive. So that's his attempt to fool you. That's his attempt to deceive you. So you say to him, but I know your trick. You're saying he's a speaker and a hearer and a seer, but you don't believe that he has speech or hearing or sight. You're not fooling me. You're only fooling yourself. And you're not even fooling yourself because you know what you believe. You're just a wicked person. You know what you believe. If you were able to fool me, you'd do it happily, but you can't fool me here. So this is atheism. Denying his attributes. And denying his attributes includes denying that he has power over the deeds of the slaves. Because this would mean that his power is actually created and limited. His power is limited, and if it's limited, it's created. If he doesn't have power over the deeds of the slaves, and he only has power over their bodies, because the one who says this, that's what he would say. The one who believes that he creates his own deeds, and that's a kind of shirk, because he gives himself the attribute of God. He at the same time believes that Allah does not have power over his own deeds. So that means, over his deeds. So that means that he believes that God's power is limited. If his power is limited, because it's restricted from the voluntary deed of people, according to him, it's only for creating bodies. God's power creates the bodies and creates in the bodies the power to create. That's what they believe. They believe Allah creates the bodies and creates in the bodies the power to create, and then by giving those bodies their own power to create, becomes powerless over what those bodies do. It's severe blasphemy. So this is an atheism, because it's a denial of his attribute. So on one hand, it's a shirk for giving himself the attribute of God. On the other hand, it's an atheism for denying the attribute of God. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ تَعَالَى. This is very severe blasphemy. Or denying that Allah has power over evil, those same people. They say Allah doesn't create evil, and Allah doesn't create our voluntary deeds. He only creates the good, and He only creates our bodies. So those people are kuffar. And when you learn about their biographies, you'll see they were not religious people. Because really, they're atheists. They weren't religious people. They were alcoholics. They wouldn't pray and things like that. It's known about them. Stories about different ones among them. They used to prefer not to hang with Muslims. So they claim to be Muslims. But if they, who are their friends? Their friends would be people of other religions. And they like to argue with the Muslims. Or denying that Allah knows the details of everything. That's denial of His attribute too. That's from philosophy. The philosophers, some of them, they believe that Allah only knows things broadly, in general, not absolutely in all detail. That's definitely blasphemy. Or denying that He is attributed with uncreated speech. Those are the same ones who deny that Allah creates the deeds of the slaves. All that's from the Mu'tazila. denying that he has uncreated speech, denying that he has power over evil or power over the deeds of the slaves, and denying that he has attributes. They say, if Allah had real attributes, then they would be eternal. And we say, yeah, of course they would be. They say, no, that's a problem. We say, it's not problems. That's right. They say, but if his attributes were eternal, that means there's more than one eternal one. Then we say, no, it does not mean there's more than one eternal one. It means there's one eternal one who has eternal attributes. Doesn't mean there's more than one eternal one. Any questions so far? What they say that those people, the Christian, the atheists, they just they know that the religion doesn't make sense, but they blame it on the fact that Al disbelieve in it. We say to them, you don't just believe in something and say, I just believe in it. This is inappropriate. It's not safe for you. You're going to wind up being tortured in the afterlife. That's what I would say to him. I would say to him, do you want to be tortured in the afterlife? So then you're going to see his answer. He's going to show you how smart or dumb he is. So if he says, I don't know, then it means he's really dumb. Or if he says, well, I'll find out, that means also he's very dumb. If he says, no, I don't want to be tortured in the afterlife, say, okay, that's right. That's a smart thing to say. So you don't want to be tortured in the afterlife. Don't just believe something just like that. That's all. How are you going to protect yourself in the afterlife? That's the approach that I would take. Okay, thank you, sir. You're welcome. Amin Wafiq. So, what about the other way of classifying blasphemy in three ways? That's the way we learned originally from the Shaykh, rahimahullah. Blasphemous beliefs, blasphemous actions, and blasphemous sayings. But when we say belief here, belief is like a summarized word. The one word for me that covers everything is blasphemy of the heart. Why I'm saying that? Because a belief is one thing, but there's also something else in the heart. What about doubts? There's blasphemous doubts. There's blasphemous decisions. So a decision is not a belief, and a doubt is not a belief. So really, for me, it's blasphemy of the heart, and that's going to include the blasphemous beliefs, and that's going to include the blasphemous doubts, and the blasphemous hesitation, and the blasphemous decision. And anything else that exists in the heart that would be blasphemy. And then there's the blasphemous actions and the blasphemous sayings. And this category or categorization, categorizing blasphemy into three divisions in this way is the consensus of the four schools. And others outside of the four schools agree with it too. When we say consensus of the four schools, doesn't mean necessarily true consensus, because there used to be more than four schools. And most important, Yani, very, very important to know that each one of these types of blasphemy is independent of the other. Allah Ta'ala says, إن السمع والبصر والفؤاد كل أولئك كان عنه مسؤولا. It means indeed the hearing and the sight, and the heart. Each one of them, one is for it responsible, for each one by one. As-sama', the hearing, wal-basar, the sight, wal-fu'ad, the heart. Each one by one is accountable for, responsible for. Goes back to the sins. The sin of the feet is a sin by itself. Sin of the hands is sin. Sin of the heart is sin. Each one of them you're responsible for. So blasphemy from the tongue is blasphemy by itself. Blasphemy with your hands is blasphemy. Blasphemy in your heart is blasphemy. Each one by one will be responsible for. So the first one, the blasphemy of the heart is like what? God comparing, which is what? Shirk. That's a blasphemy of the heart. That's if he didn't speak about it. If he didn't speak about it, then it's just a blasphemy of the heart. If he actually spoke about it, it's going to be a blasphemy of the tongue, and it's still going to be what? God comparing. So you see how those come together now. These last three basically are where the blasphemy comes from. Or denying the attributes of Allah in his heart only, that's going to be blasphemy of the heart. If he says it with his tongue, that denial, that's going to be blasphemy by the tongue. Or denying prophethood, but fundamentally it's from the heart, because we're saying denying. And denying, the place of denial is the heart, the source of it, that is. Or believing that a religion other than Islam is valid. That's a blasphemous belief. I have a question for you. Do you have an ayah from the Quran to prove that Islam is the only correct religion? What do you have for me? Okay, that's acceptable. Do you have another one? Okay, if you want to take this one in Surah Al Imran, وَمَن يَبْتَغِي غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا فَلَن يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. Whoever seeks a religion other than Islam, وَمَن يَبْتَغِي, anyone who seeks, وَمَن يَبْتَغِي غَيْرَ الْإِسْلام, anyone who seeks other than Islam as dina, a religion, فَلَن يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ, it shall not be accepted from him. وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ, and he shall be in the afterlife one of the losers, one of the failures. It's a very explicit ayah. The one you gave is correct though. Inna ad-deena 'inda Allahi al-Islam. But when you're dealing with some person who is hard-headed or slow, then you're going to tell him the ayah, and it's just going to be like you didn't tell him anything, the one that you chose. Because of his lack, not because it's not right, that is right, but because of his own lack of comprehension. One of the things you want to do, good brother, is you want to pick out the strong proofs. Proofs have different levels in strength, of effectiveness, and straightforwardness, clarity. You want the proofs that are very clear, very blatant and straightforward, and have no way around them. This one, it is like that, the one that you chose. It is like that. You gave 100% correct answer. But why I'm commenting? Because I'm thinking not about the proof you gave, I'm thinking about the opponent you want to give the proof to. Because he might say to you, yeah, religion to Allah is Islam. That doesn't mean that there's not another religion, and then you're going to have a conversation with him. If you gave him the ayah, I'm telling you, he won't even be able to say that. You shut him down completely. وَمَنْ يَبْتَغِ غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا فَلَنْ يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ. Anyone who chooses a religion other than Islam, it shall not be accepted from him. وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. And he shall be in the afterlife one of the failures. Now he's going to shut his mouth. But hopefully he will agree with you. We don't want him to shut his mouth only. We want him to accept the truth. What else is going to bring to you? It's going to bring to you لَكُمْ دِينُكُمْ وَلِيَ دِينٍ. You have your religion and I have my religion. Tell him this means you have your wrong religion, I have my right religion. He's going to bring to you فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ. Whoever wants, let him believe. And whoever wants, let him commit kufr. Tell him this is a threat. This doesn't mean you're allowed to commit kufr. And then you give him the ayah from Surah Al-Imran. وَمَنْ يَبْتَغِ غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا فَلَنْ يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ. Even just that much. Even without the last part. The last part being وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. Just the first part is enough. Whoever chooses a religion other than Islam, it shall not be accepted from him. Period. So believing that a religion other than Islam is valid, that's blasphemy with no excuse, even if you're a new Muslim. Just embrace Islam. قَرِيبُ عَهْدٍ بِإِسْلام. This one is a blasphemy even for a brand new Muslim, because that's fundamental. Believing in Allah properly, believing in His Messenger properly, and believing in the religion properly, that's fundamental. Less than this is blasphemy, even for a new Muslim. Or denying in the heart what is known by necessity. So then what is that? That's takdhib. Contradicting the religion in the heart, though. So it's a blasphemy, one kind of blasphemy coming from the heart. If he says it with his tongue, it's going to be from the tongue. The second, which is blasphemous actions, blasphemous activity, is like prostrating to a creation other than a human. In simple words, prostrating to a creation other than a human is blasphemy. And prostrating to a human is not blasphemy unless you wanted to worship him. Then someone might say, but what if the creation I prostrated to, I didn't want to worship it? I would say to him, I just gave you the answer. It's blasphemy. So if someone said, even if I don't want to worship it, I said, that's right. Even if you don't want to worship it, still blasphemy. And if he says, why? I'll say to him, because that's something that no one does but a kafir. No one prostrates to idols and trees and pictures and whatever else except a kafir. And if he says, well, why prostrating to a human is not kufr? The answer would be because it was actually even permissible in previous laws. So Allah commanded the angels to prostrate to Adam. And also the parents of Yusuf and his brothers prostrated to him. Not out of worship, but out of respect. So prostrating to a human is the only exception. And then it has to be with the intention of salute. If it's with the intention of worship, it's blasphemy. And with the intention of salute is still haram in the nation of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, in the law of Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa ala alihi wasallam. Or throwing away religiously respectable material while realizing what it is, or sitting on it or spitting on it, a Quran or a book of religion, of Islamic religion. And the third, which is blasphemous saying, is like calling a Muslim a kafir without an excuse and without any confusion. Or belittling Allah. Belittling Allah, what's that? That's a kind of kufr called istighfaf, sacrilege. Or belittling his messenger, or belittling the religion, that's istighfaf. Blasphemy of sacrilege. But what about this one? I just breezed over it quickly. Calling a Muslim a blasphemer without any excuse or confusion. So this case needs to be clarified. Calling a Muslim a kafir. What did the Prophet say about it? Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He said, Man qala li akhihi ya kafir. Whoever says to his brother, "O kafir," فَقَدْ بَاءَ بِهَا أَحَدُهُمَا. Then one of those two goes back as a kafir. إِن كَانَ كَمَا قَالَ. Either it is as the speaker said, وَإِلَّا رَجَعَتْ عَلَيْهِ. Or else it comes back on him himself. Or else the speaker's own charge of blasphemy comes back on him. It's important to know that this hadith needs to be explained properly. And the rules that are taken from this hadith are further than what the words of this hadith might suggest. The case is not as limited as the words of this hadith would suggest. Because it looks like if you just take the words of this hadith only, you're going to say, anytime you call a Muslim a kafir and he's not a kafir, then you're a kafir. And that's what somebody's going to tell you. Somebody who committed kufr, for example, and then when you told him that's kufr, and then he's going to tell you you have no right to call him a kafir, and he's going to tell you that you're not supposed to judge. He's going to tell you the hadith, and he's going to tell you this is very dangerous because if you don't, if you're wrong here, the kufr is going to come back on you. Okay. So, when talking generally without details, then yes, like the Prophet said, ala ra'si wal ayn. But when talking with details, there's details. Because sometimes a person thinks that something is kufr because of his ignorance or his confusion. He thinks something is kufr, like he thinks drinking wine is kufr. Or he thinks that homicide is kufr. Or suicide. Or zina. And then he knew about a Muslim who did any of that. So what's he going to call him? He's going to call him a kafir. Here, he does not commit kufr. What's in the hadith doesn't apply to him here. Why not? Because he has shubha. He has shubha, fallacy, confusion. Has blunder in his comprehension here. He thinks a major sin is blasphemy. So in this case, we're going to teach him and then forbid him. We're going to say to him, these things are merely major sins, and the one who commits them is still a believer as long as he didn't legalize them. And don't say it's kufr So we're going to teach him and we're going to forbid him. Say, don't say that's kufr. It's not kufr. I mean, yeah, don't say that's kufr. It's not kufr. Or there's another case, which is that sometimes a person would call someone something, not just the word kafir, but just something, and it's a metaphor. This confuses a lot of people, but really it's easy. Metaphor meaning he's comparing this person to something without saying like. When you say Zayd is a lion, so are you saying he's a real lion? You're not saying he's a real lion. So no one's confused here. No one's confused here. Or if you said Zayd is a pig, also no one is confused here. So when you said he was a lion, you meant he was brave. And when you said he was a pig, you meant he's sloppy. That's metaphor. And in the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, any woman who goes out perfumed so that the men would find her smell, fahiya zaniyah, she's an adulteress. So she might be a virgin. How's she going to be an adulteress? So what it means here, this is a metaphor. It means like. This is like saying Zayd is a lion or Amr is a pig. The Prophet said, that perfumed woman who went out for the men to find her smell, she's a zania. Not really, though. And like that, someone would say to a Muslim, you kafir? Here he means to liken him, to compare him, not to deem him as a real kafir. This is haram, though. It is haram. But it's not blasphemy because although this is a sin, it works in the language. It works in the language. That's why I started with all the examples I gave you, to tell you that it's possible that someone might call a Muslim a kafir in this way, in the way that it's a metaphor, and that works in the language. And some people are confused here. Some brothers and sisters, if you said about a man, you're a girl, they say, what? Oh, we need to ask about your case. Maybe you committed kufr. It's not kufr. Or if a man had a big belly, someone said, man, you're pregnant. Then somebody's going to say, what? Oh, no, let's go see if you committed kufr. Where's kufr here? It's not kufr. But that's due to the ignorance of our time now. The comprehension, rather. Not even the ignorance, the comprehension. The comprehension of the people has diminished in our times. There's even another case that the Sheikh mentioned, which is the case of calling someone by the name of what he used to be. So, what if somebody used to be an alcoholic? If somebody used to be an alcoholic, another person might come to offend him, he doesn't like him, and say, hey, alcoholic. Hey, wino. He's not a wino anymore, though, but he calls him one because he used to be. So that's something that happens. Or I'll give you even easier example. Not even offensive. What if somebody is not a soldier anymore? What do people call him? Hey, Sarge. He's not Sergeant, Yani. He's not a soldier anymore. He's retired now. He just sits in his house in his rocking chair. Hey, Sarge. Why they call him that? Based on what he used to be. So that's something. That's a thing, as they say. That's a thing. So also, what's Yani that? Following that same thing, someone might say to a Muslim who's a convert, he might say, "Hey, Jew." Sheikh says in the Bughya, if he means you who used to be a Jew, then that's haram, but it's not kufr. So here you see the importance of understanding the language. One who does not understand the language and its ins and outs will not understand many cases. And then he is not qualified to speak about the religious judgments of statements. Some people think that they understand the language well because it's their own language. They need to be informed that just because you speak a language doesn't mean you're an expert in that language. Uh, so that's the case of calling a Muslim a kafir. That's its details. After learning these details, then you're going to one day maybe have the task of helping a person understand that the hadithi citing man qala man qala li akhihi ya kafir faqad ba'a biha ahaduhuma. This hadith he's citing, uh its case is not as restricted. The case is not as restricted as he thinks it is because of the hadith he's citing. The hadith he's citing, without having more knowledge, makes him think that the case is tighter than it is. And finally, when it comes to blasphemous statements, you have two kinds: explicit, blatant, clear, unequivocal, frank, straightforward blasphemy. This means it only means blasphemy. The statement doesn't mean anything else. And sometimes you have a statement that is not clear, blatant, unequivocal, explicit, frank, straightforward blasphemy. No. Rather, it is seeming to be blasphemy, seems to be blasphemy, appears to be blasphemy, but doesn't have to be necessarily. So these two types, they have their own rules. Each one has its own rules. First, what's an example of explicit? An example of explicit one is like saying, I hate God. That's explicit blasphemy. Or saying, damn Muhammad. That's explicit blasphemy, sending curses upon the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. May Allah raise his rank. Then this is explicit kufr, and the one who does it, he is a kafir, unless he doesn't even know the meaning of the words he's saying. He's saying the words, but he doesn't know what they mean. He thinks he knows what they mean, but he doesn't. Like, he thinks saying, damn Muhammad means have a nice day. So then he doesn't blaspheme. Although that seems so far-fetched. You'd say, huh? Would it? Could it be? Would it have? Yeah, just as an example, though, because really it's explicit, so that's why you're going to be surprised. You don't know what this means? You don't know what you are saying? Don't say this is kufr. And this person is going to commit kufr unless he doesn't know the meanings of what he's saying. But sometimes the statement is not clear blasphemy. Rather, it only seems to be blasphemy because that's the meaning that that pops up, that jumps out at you. The kufr meaning, like if someone says God is above, it doesn't mean in a place necessarily. Could mean in a place, which would be kufr, or it could mean supreme, and then that's not kufr. Or someone might say, uh, in God's hands. So if he means God has organs, that's blasphemy. But if he means in God's control, it's not blasphemy. In this case, then you're gonna deem the person, yani you're not going to deem the person as a kafir unless you know what he meant. You cannot. It is not permissible. And from here, I'm going to leave you a very important guideline, which is whenever something is not clear for you, don't charge the person as a kafir. You don't have to be confused. You might say, but what if he really committed kufr? Say, okay, but is it clear for you? No? Okay, then you don't deem him as a kafir. Because it's not clear for you means you don't know that he really committed kufr. You're not going to be harmed here. There's no harm on you here. So you're just going to take the rule, which is he said something, you don't know how to take it. And again, if your question is, but what if it's explicit? Say, okay, let's say it is. But you don't know how to take it. So for you, it's not explicit. Then don't deem him as a kafir. Then you're going to be safe. No problem here. If you want, go and ask about it. If you want to, even. That's another thing that some people don't understand. You don't have to ask. You don't necessarily have to. But a lot of people, they want to ask so that they can get back to the person so they can correct his issue, for example. But sometimes the thing is that you just want to be able to deem the person as a Muslim. You don't want to have to deem him as a kafir. So in case you want to be able to deem him as a Muslim and you don't want to have to be obligated to deem him as a kafir, and then he said something, then if you don't know how to take it, then say, Allahu A'lam, I don't know what it means. I'm still going to judge him as a Muslim. Because I don't know how to take this. I'm afraid it's explicit, but I don't know. I'm not sure. So I cannot. It's not permissible for me to deem him as a kafir. Then you will be safe. Wallahu a'lam. Any question? Yeah. First one is about a threat from Allah. If we are in like a debate and I use a threat to avoid him, like a threat to not commit blasphemy. This is not a clear kufr statement because what it really means is don't do it. Yes. So it's not. So it's not kufr. It's not explicit kufr. Okay. Explicit. Yeah. And one more question. Yeah. I know if there's someone like a Wahhabi I know if I was to come up to them and try and tell them about the correct belief, they will reply with kufr. And I go up to them and I speak to them, knowing that they will reply with kufr. So let's change the word from know to believe. A person believes that if he speaks to someone, this person is going to say kufr. That's his belief. Yeah. So then that means he's not going to speak to him so that he doesn't commit kufr. So why would he speak to him so he can commit kufr? He anticipates for him to commit kufr, so why would he speak to him? It's going to be kufr. It's going to be kufr because he anticipates that. Yeah, because that's what he anticipates from the person. Yeah. Just wanted to confirm that because I did hear it a long time ago. So what about when you go up to those people like this to debate them, like to help them? What do we like? Just to be careful for myself, because I don't want to fall into that. We don't know what they're gonna say. Okay. You never know what they're gonna say. Keep that one closer. Keep that one closer than the other one. Keep closer that you don't know what a person's gonna say, as opposed to I think he's gonna say kufr. Say I don't know what he's gonna say. Then if he does say commit, huh? Unsure about what? Well, you're gonna have to be unsure because you don't know the unseen. You don't know what he's gonna say. So don't worry about that. If you have a plan, if you have a good knowledge, if you have a proper approach, if you know how to avoid blasphemy, then go ahead and talk to the person. You don't know what he's gonna say. Hmm.
But what do I say to those people who seem attached to the world? How can I make that attachment go and then them?
You can't make the attachment go. What you can do is say to him what makes sense, and then he's gonna accept or not accept.
So okay, so it's like I was thinking about the prophet's case for the woman so that with his uncle was knew that he was the prophet, but because his love for the dunya dragged him to dying as a blessor.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, like, is this something I could do?
You can't force a person to accept.
Okay.
That's the meaning of your question. How can I make him accept what I'm saying? That's the meaning of your question.
Yes.
You can't make him accept. You can just tell him what's right, and inshallah he will be guided. You're welcome.